Hello, and welcome to another Devlog for Lucen. I hope everyone had a great new year. The past month and a bit has been insanely busy for me. I moved house and have been working really hard on Lucen. I also have some big news that I can't share just yet, but due to this news I unfortunately won't be making another devlog or tutorial till around March or April. But don't worry, only good things are ahead for Lucen. I want to thank all my patrons. There has been a lot of growth in the past couple of months and I really appreciate it. For patrons who are primarily on board for things like tutorials, I totally understand if you want to suspend or withdraw your patronage for the time being, as I won't have much new content to share for a couple of months. For those who want to continue supporting, rest assured that I'll be working harder than ever on Lucen, and I'm very excited for what's in store and I can't wait to share it with everyone. I've worked on quite a bit this past little while. One of the things I worked on was some fire for torches. I wanted to approach it in a new and novel way, so I decided to try vertex animation texture from Houdini. To do this, I did a basic fire sim within Houdini. I then converted it to an SDF and meshed it as polygons, and poly reduced it quite a bit. Next I created some attributes from the Y position, temperature and curvature, and saved them into the red, green and blue channels of the vertex color. That way I can access them in Unreal for shading. Finally, I used the Side Effects Labs Bake Vertex Animation Texture node to save out the vertex positions as a texture. I also used Houdini to create a vector field for the embers by making a point cloud with velocity values and saving it using Side Effects Labs Vector Field Exporter. Once inside Unreal, I created a shader for the fire that leveraged the attributes I had saved earlier to drive a color ramp I'd created. I added this to a blueprint with a point light and added some flicker to the light to emulate the effect of flickering flames. I also added some random offset to the animation position here too. This, along with a basic ember particle system driving the ember size by velocity, worked really nicely for the fire. I finished it off with a cinematic shot that I'm quite happy with. Another thing I worked on was a more streamlined approach to the trees. I modified the Side Effects Labs Quick Tree node to be able to rapidly create stylized trees for Lucen. The Side Effects Labs node is doing something similar to what I was doing previously for growing branches, but is wrapped up in a nicer way, so it made sense to utilize the groundwork they had and build upon it. I added slightly different branch rotation seeding around the trunk, as well as implementing a much different leaf system, and creating an auto LOD switch to rapidly generate LODs. I go into this in much more detail in the tutorial I created. I'll leave a link in the description. One of my favourite things to work on this past month has been the new cave environment I started. The basis of this environment is a procedural rock generation method I've been working on. It leverages the power of SDFs for noise to create natural shapes without tearing the geometry to pieces. By adding the noise with volumes instead of geometry, it means you aren't limited by the topology and can push the noise quite far, converting back to geometry afterward. With auto UVing and a smart material in Substance Painter that I modified, the process of generating rock formations for the cave is incredibly quick. All the setup needs is a base shape and then it does the rest. When creating this cave environment, I worked really hard on developing a new water shader as well that would interact nicely with the shaft of light coming through the opening at the top. To achieve this, I used a refractive material with a depth fade to get a bit of cloudiness in the body of the water that fades away more in the shallow areas. For the foam, I utilized distance fields with the distance to nearest surface node to switch between opacity and color values based on how close it was to the rocks. For the caustics, I'm using a cool technique shared by Christo Encheb on Twitter to project a map downwards and get really cheap fake caustics. I added a light near the surface of the water to give it some fake transmission, as well as painting some rocks and bioluminescent mushrooms with the foliage painter. The light shaft is created by using volumetrics on the distant light and leaving an opening where it needs to shine through. The most popular thing I made recently was definitely the Dino Chicken. This is one of the bosses in Lucen, a large flightless bird who will fight you to protect its nest. I made and implemented this character in 2 days. I spent one day on the model, textures and rigging, and another day on animation and implementation in Unreal. The animation will definitely need some polish at some point, but it was a great exercise to see just how quickly I could go from nothing to an in-game enemy. It's given me a lot of confidence going forward to rapidly create content and has proven the robustness of my pipeline. I first sculpted the bird in ZBrush. I started with Z-spheres, continued by building up the sculpt and adding details, and then finished off with some alphas to give some normal details. I then brought it into Substance Painter to create the textures, and hand-painted masks to add different materials to each area. In Houdini, I used the grooming tools to create a groom and shape the angle and size of the feathers, and created a basic feather to instance onto the points after creating orientations along the curve. I then created a robust rig with some goals in mind. I wanted inverse kinematic controls for all sorts of movements. Of course on the feet and hips, but also one that would move the hips independent of the neck, one to move the head independent of the body, and one that moves the hips and head together. I wanted to be able to mimic the ability that birds have to stabilize their head and keep it still while their body moves. I'm happy with how the rig controls, now I just need to spend more time on the animation. For the animation, I created a basic run cycle and an idle animation to use in Unreal with a 1D blend space so that the bird could run. I then used a basic behavior tree to make the bird chase after loosen. Soon I'll create some attack animations and work on the combat for the boss fight. Despite being really busy with life stuff this past couple of months, I feel as though I've been really productive with the time I've had and can't wait to share all the exciting news I have with everyone. I'm also doing a lot of planning and preparation for the trailer, and most of what I'm working on for the next couple of months will be geared towards getting that ready. That's it for this devlog, thanks for watching. Subscribe and hit the bell if you'd like to see more, and feel free to follow on Twitter, join the Discord or support on Patreon. The links are in the description.